Good morning, everyone. This is the Power Possibilities podcast with myself and the one, the only certified facilitator, Heather MacMillian. And this is really part two because our conversation yesterday or last week on change, we started getting into how change affects and manifests in the body, and we want to continue the conversation around that. And any particular thing that stands out to where to begin our part two conversation?
Well, really, and I shared it last week. It's, if I was having fun, what would I choose today? That amazing question from Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. And what if your body could be included in that? And so often we don't ask, well, what would be fun? What would be fun for my body to do today?
Yeah, and that is so huge. I think it was after my first foundation class, I started to kind of be aware that the body is really separate, and it has its own things. And when I started asking my body, what would you desire? Everything changed. Like the clothes I wore changed. I went plant-based, and that's not, don't worry if you start talking your body, you're not going to go vegan necessarily. That's just what my experience was. But truly, I was treating my body so badly. I was eating such crap that my body's like, I need a detox. I need a break. Yeah, cut all that out. And
wow, I didn't realize that before foundation, you weren't vegan.
No,
I've always known you as a vegan.
No, like the very first foundation ever when you were in Columbus, I ate everything. Or maybe I was starting to trend on that. I don't really remember it because it's kind of, now the years are blending together, but it was the access tools for sure that made me start to ask body, what do you desire? And I also, like, I would be the kind of person, I would buy $10 jeans, like wherever I could get the cheapest clothes, because it's just clothes, right? But when I started asking my body, what would be fun for you to wear? All of a sudden, we're at Eddie Bauer, and there's these jeans that are like $120. I'm like, what? Are you serious? But, they were on sale, so it was cool, but I bought them. And then my wife actually said, thank God you're finally wearing fitted clothes. And it's just like, well, what was more fun for my body to wear? Like these things that were just baggy and didn't like allow it to like show itself or whatnot, or like fitted clothes that are actually like, hey, I'm showing up in the world and it's fun to be this body. Like it really was like that kind of communication that created such a change in my life. And it kind of rippled out through everything that I do. Like, would this be fun? Hey, body, what do you think? Because the body, if you include it, you might be surprised at what new possibilities unfold and what things you never thought you would choose, you might choose, because the body's like, hey, I'm on board with what you want to do if you also choose this, that type of thing. It's like a communion with the body.
Yeah. And it just reminds me too of like, whenever I ask my body, like, what would you enjoy today? What movement would you like? And I always get, going to the woods, being outside, being around the big, big trees that I'm so fortunate are all over here in Maryland, like really big trees. You can't even wrap your arms around them. So.
Yeah. And the other thing that goes along with that I found, one of my favorite clearings I ask myself all the time when something physical shows up is, what am I being aware of that I'm not willing to acknowledge that the body's acknowledging for me?
Yeah.
And that has opened all these portals of awareness. That's like, oh, look at that. And as soon as I acknowledge it, then the experience the body is having around that energy shifts. And most of the time, it's not even my own, like, it's not an awareness that has anything to do with me. It's an awareness that has to do with something else or someone else or anything like that. And it's so huge. I can't emphasize enough for everyone to start to connect with the body in whatever way is right for you. But I think Access has a lot of great tools to start that process, and then change in general can become so much easier.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that was so amazing when I started Access was that there were so many tools and processes for nurturing the body. And, the first one, the first class that, almost everyone takes in Access is Access Bars, this body process, 32 points on the head that when you lightly touch them, release thoughts and feelings and emotions and invite a sense of peace and relaxation. And that was so different for me because I was so in my head before. I wanted to, analyze things and figure out the reason. And bars is so different than that. You lay down and receive.
Yeah, and people's bodies are so hungry for receiving because we're told it's not right to be touched or anything like that unless you're married. And then, like we just get so, what's the word I'm looking for? So I don't have a good word for it. We're so disconnected with
Yeah.
being able to just be in the space to be nurtured by another human being. And bars like starts to unravel that because you got to be touched to receive. And then
Yeah.
there's what, dozens or hundreds of other body processes in access consciousness.
Yeah.
Bars is just one of many.
Yeah. And wow, I mean, for me, it was like things that I'd struggled, quote unquote, struggled with for years with my body just kind of stopped being a thing after I started doing the bars and body work. And that's really, I a question I ask my body when there's an intensity going on or some discomfort. It's, body, what are you telling me?
Yes, that's a huge thing that I know we've said on the streams before that. And recently I've had this back issue going on and I went to body. Thank you so much for bringing this awareness to me. What's going on? What's going on in your world? And it started leading me through like all the stuff. And I got processing work around it a couple times already. It's just like, wow, this is just like this little energetic bomb that's been held within my body, and now like the time is right for it to start unraveling, and the pain is actually a meter for me. It's just like, okay, we're dealing with it, it's gotten exponentially better. But instead of going, body, why are you doing this to me, it's like, body, thank you so much for this awareness, what's up in your world, and see where that conversation leads you. And it could be to this amazing new space of possibility as you get rid of these things that were heavy in your life that were creating things showing up in your world that you really weren't looking to actualize consciously, but were actualizing unconsciously because something you weren't willing to acknowledge. That if you acknowledge, everything changes.
Totally, totally. And one of the conversations that I'm aware of as we're talking about this is in the Access Bars manual when we talk about the healing bar. And that was that blew my mind when I started Access, was the whole conversation around, what if we're more healing and nurturing to others and to the earth than we've ever been willing to receive and acknowledge. And so, when you do have intensity going on in the body, you can ask, like Hank was asking, is this mine? Is this someone else's? Or is this something else's? And for many of us, we are far, far more aware of the earth than we've ever been invited to step into that knowing of, wow, like what energies do I have available to contribute to the earth? Earth, what do you require of me today?
And for anybody who wants to take, this is just popping for me to share with everyone on the Access Consciousness site of the shop. I think it is the New Year's Eve ESC from Dr. Dain for 2021. And it is like this huge dive into the space of being with the earth, being one with the earth, creating with the earth.
Yeah.
And it is just super, super amazing. So I wish I could like give people a taste of it.
I think you just did.
I gave everybody a little taste of it.
A little energy of that. Woo, like,
yeah. But
wow.
truly, like, what if everything was a creationship instead of relationship? Relationship is a space of we're recognizing, hey, we're this duality thing, and we're doing this polarity thing, which is total bullshit. But if you can be in creationship, it's like the one-ality thing, like, hey, it's really this space of just consciousness. And how could I create with everything around me instead of against everything around me? And what could you create with the earth and with your body and with all the other aspects of consciousness around you that could create this space of possibility for all of mankind, or humankind, if we want to be totally politically correct, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's something that's, woven through all of this, and that ESC that you were talking about from Dr. Dain, for everyone who's taken a bars class, he offers 1 or 2 a year, especially around, New Year's. And it's a way to have that communion. It's ESC stands for energetic synthesis of communion. And, what if that's, what our bodies and are hungry for these days, is that communion, that sense of oneness.
Definitely. And if you want to experience that a little bit, we already talked about getting your bars run. If you go to the Access Consciousness night, there are clinics all the time in all different parts of the world where you can go get your bars run. We do one the first Thursday of every month. We have a bars class coming up on the 17th. Jason Ford is teaching bars at the Emergence Being Center. And there's links in the video description if you want to like get in on that. Or if you're in the Maryland area, Heather's always having bars classes.
A couple coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing where I'm going with that is if you actually dive into a bars class or come to a clinic, there's other energy flows. And one that I found essential for the body and the being to work together is that thymus exercise, where it's like 6 different energy flows. And some say that the thymus is the seat of the soul. And what if that's the place where the body and the being really start to jive and commune and be integrated with one another?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's just one of the many tools that you learn in a bars class. It was like I was facilitating a bars class last week, and someone said, "Oh my gosh, there's so much in this class." And it really, lately I've noticed it's like it's an 8-hour class, and wow, there's just so much in there, and including four sessions of access bars. It's like
There's
amazing.
Oh, and I love the way that I've taken many bars classes, because for me it's like, hey, instead of just going to get a bar session, I could pay for a class. If you take it the first time, you get it half price every time after that. So it's like I get to give 2 sessions and get 2 sessions. And it's like it would cost me more to just go get 2 sessions outside of there. So I love taking classes just to get like my bars run. Where was I going with that? Oh, I was going with like how much I enjoyed Heather's class, because like you spend 1 hour kind of in the book, 1 hour with the video, then you get on the tables, and throughout the rest of the day she like sprinkles in these other parts of the class, like, would you like to hear another tool? And I was like, yes please. And you're in such a space of nurturing, and like those tools are like just these consciousness depth charges that go in and just like loosen up stuff and give you more space and more possibility. I love the way Heather teaches her class. But go to a class. Any class will do. Yeah. They're all potent, powerful. Everybody has their unique style. And you don't have to desire to be a practitioner to do this. Do it for you, because it's going to create for you. And you don't necessarily have to go and like be a professional bars person. The class is way more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the people that have been showing up in class have ranged from people who are just curious and would like a day of nurturing. Like we talked about on the last stream, like what would it be like if you took 1 hour a day? You know, this is a tool from Gary Douglas, 1 hour a day and 1 whole day a week to nurture you and your body, to do what nurtures your body and your soul. Like, what would that contribute to your business? What would that contribute to your relationships? What would that contribute to your body? Right. And wow, I mean, just ask, what could I do for 1 whole hour today that would nurture my body and soul?
Yeah, and a clearing around that, every place where you don't think you have enough time to make time for you, destroy and uncreate that bullshit. Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because we live in this crazy Western world where we're going 1,000,000 miles per hour. And to take an hour out of your day to nurture you is like a beyond for some people. Like, where will I find the time? And beyonds are those things that solidify things in your world. Like you get that bill in the mail that you're like 10 times the amount that you thought. And you're like, that's what even like thinking about an hour of time, like for me, some people go to that beyond energy. And what would it be like if you could manipulate time and make more time and actually have time for you and for the body and for the being and just to be and receive and nurture you?
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned a couple times that the gifting and receiving, like that's what was so different and wonderful about Access for me. The part that I love is that as a facilitator, as a practitioner of bars and body processes, and is that when you gift a session, you get a session as well. So it's just the possibilities are exponential. And I find facilitating a session of bars so relaxing for me, and I get paid for it too. So it's like, wow, how does it get better than this? It's so much fun. And lately people in classes are just so excited to share this gift with people. They're like, oh, I can't wait to run bars on my husband, or I can't wait to share this with people I used to work with. I mean, it's amazing how excited people are to just share this gift.
Yeah. And, that energy has the energy of the book of possibilities. Access came out recently, well, within the last year, like recently, so recently. But for people who are in a situation where they are working in hospice or hospitals or even corporate settings, if you become a bars facilitator, they have a special version of the class where you can go into these corporate settings and like teach people not to be a practitioner, but just to be able to offer to their patients, to their clients, to the coworkers and things. So I love how dynamic Access is, and recognizing that there's this whole other place that this could be offered and shared that is just so awesome. I haven't got to do one of those classes. I'm going to put out to the universe. What would it take for me to go into corporations and just be like, hey, we're going to have this day of possibility, and we're just going to teach you to nurture yourselves and to nurture others. And what gift could you be to everyone else around you if you could hold the space?
Yeah. And it's there's also a version of the manual that's so beautifully illustrated for children.
Yes, like kids don't even need the full 8 hours. Like usually they're off doing other things during class, but there's like a whole
they're
other.
I got this.
And when I was looking at it, like I kind of like this book better than the adult book. It's so pretty. And I think Mary Ford, one of the people that teaches also out of the Emergence of Being Center, she had a whole bars day for kids at the center at one point last year. Maybe it's time to recreate that and actualize some more possibilities around children. And even my son Max and Oliver, they just were on a whole 10-day money series with Heather. My son Oliver was volunteering to read, and so it's great to see.
Amazing. They were amazing. The energy of having kids in class is so much fun. Like having them, they were so present. They were the first ones on for every one of the 10 sessions on Zoom, and the presence required to read the part of the student, because you're engaging in the flow of the class, and it was just amazing. I'm so grateful.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, I'm going to wait, obviously, but I'm so looking forward, because Max, if it hadn't been during school, the last foundation class, he would have been in foundation. And so it's just cool to see that he has that level of interest. And he actually did healing work on me last night, doing a body process for me, even though he's not done. He's like, I can do something, Daddy. And boom, like he just started working, and I could feel things loosening up. Kids have no point of view about that. They're not stuck. And so like now is the time to nurture and create space for children to really know what their possibilities are and to carry that as they grow up. That's why Gary Douglas, like for kids under 16, all access classes could be attended free. And if they're 16 to 18 or 16 to 17, it's half price. So, because he recognizes children are who's going to get us out of this mess, right?
I know. Well, they get it so easily too. And it's like, wow, what do these kids know?
Yeah.
And how can we invite them to know what they know and share that with the world?
And also just giving those tools to not interesting point of view, especially going to high school and middle school where there's all these peer pressures and these cliques and everything, to have the tools of access. That's an amazing gift to navigate that landscape as they go through the education process.
Well, truly. And there's so much of that lately is, beyond what everyone's telling you to do or telling you is the right thing to do. With so many conflicting pieces of information out there, what do you know? What do you know is going to work for you? What do you know is going to work for your body? And what's going to create the future that you desire?
Truly. That's awesome. Cool. So with a couple minutes left, where else shall we go with the conversation? A few clearings. What's your favorite tool? What would be the greatest contribution for the people that are going to be on the call now and in the future?
Well, I would ask the question, is now the time? Like, have you always known that something greater and different was possible, that there were possibilities that, maybe you stopped creating that, or stopped believing that you could have or be or do that? Would you be willing to destroy and create everywhere you're knowing and what was true for you was invalidated or obscured or covered up in some way? Everything that is, will you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And what if it really is the time to be you? And wow, yeah.
And that inspires a story. The first thing I ever did, spiritually speaking, in the public eye, was to have a book discussion group for Conversations with God, which is a book by Neil Donald Walsh. And I was actually in a year program for his work, so I could get comfortable and know what I was doing when I started doing groups. And I went to a workshop with him, and I'm in line getting my book signed. And I was telling him, he was asking me questions, and I was telling him how I'm in this class, and then I was going to do groups. And he's just like, well, why not now? If not you, who? If not now, when? And I went home, and I started my first group back in 2008, and then have just continued to add to my life. But that was the little phrase that kind of really woke me up to get me started to actually doing this stuff, because you can start now. There's nothing else you need. You're an infinite being. If not you, who? If not now, when? Start now. Now is always the time, because it's only the ever-present moment of now.
Yeah, and the question from Access Consciousness is, what else is possible? What else is possible you haven't ever considered? What else is possible for you and for your body?
Yeah, and what invitation and gift could you be to the world if you allowed yourself to be?
Truly.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yes,
this is so much fun,
guys. This is amazing.
And we will see you next time on Wednesday. Have a good one, everyone.